All right, you guys, pushing on the doors of life, marked pool, coming to you live from San Francisco. It's Ralph, Zig, Tycho.
In the zone. Thank you, Paulie B.
What's happening, my man? Good to
Number
see you.
37, Holy Toledo.
Holy Toledo.
Did we ever expect this? We did.
You had dreams of it.
I had dreams of it, and my dreams are coming true.
All right.
You've helped me produce a show that is worthy of sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 of those.
Right.
And we continue to get guests who are interesting, passionate, articulate, and friendly.
Right.
Who have opinions without being opinionated. And of that, I am extremely proud. And thank you for your help along the way.
No problem. And you're right. This person, matter of fact, today's guest is really not opinionated. He really kind of rides that middle line.
He has to. He's a human being out there, not a podcaster. And we have opinions that are strong, and we can voice them freely. It's cathartic.
Right.
But Jeff Canberra is a guest, and by design, he is an attorney who mediates landlord and tenants disputes. Can you imagine the job he has in life? He's an Alamedan and one of the most interesting guys on my Facebook. He's a vegan, and I'd like to welcome him to our mic for the first time, Jeff Canberra. How are you doing, Jeff?
Good morning, Zig. Paul, how are you? Nice to be here.
Nice to have you, man.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of the show. Thanks for being in the zone. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, doing well. Before we start, I want to just make sure people know that there's potential disruptions here. I've got a big 90-pound German Shepherd that if UPS comes to the door, we're going to get a little bit of disruption. I might have to take care of that and come back. So just to let you know.
Well, as long as Germans aren't coming to your door for that to get their Shepherd back. And I could hardly blame them because they were only following orders.
Yeah. Orders, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And one correction, Zig, it's aspiring vegan.
Aspiring vegan.
Aspiring vegan. Yes, I still do have my moments.
But you've been aspiring now for the 5 years that I know you on Facebook. And I even joke about it that you're the one vegan who is not emaciated and can carry on a conversation other than veganism. You ever notice that vegans got to talk about it 24/7? It's like being born again. You have to express it. and that's okay. That's okay.
That's
Hey,
right. Each to his own. We all have our own reasons for aspiring.
okay. Let me ask you this, just to get to know you. What did you listen to music wise when you were a kid growing up? Your first, um, what did you like? Jazz, rhythm and blues?
Yeah, rock and roll.
Oh,
No,
okay.
classic rock and roll. And I was unfortunately probably a little too young to appreciate the Buddy Holly early Motown.
Right, right.
All right.
But
Well, here's the question. You know the question. Do you know the question I'm going to ask? If you're a real classic rocker from your era, was it the Stones or the Beatles?
that was my taking the words out. And I would add, how about the Kinks too? Or,
Oh,
yeah,
Ray Davies,
yeah,
all day, all of the night.
Yeah.
And
right,
I'll answer your question, but I'll tell you, I was walking my dog one day down Alameda Avenue, down in front of the Alameda High School at lunchtime, and a group of kids were singing, "Girl, I want to be with you all of the
right,
time,"
right.
and then the whole chorus goes in all day and all of the night. That music is not dead.
No, and it never will be. One thing about being a geezer like myself, and I've got both you and Paul beat by a number of years.
By a big geese.
A big, oh, a big geese. The one thing about it, you will never hear, you'll never grow up in 1959 and have cousin Brucey play songs for you on WINS or Murray the K and what have you.
Hurry, yeah.
And my good friend on Facebook, um, Edward Harder, is an original Earl. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Earls, but they came up just after Dion and the Belmonts. And Edward tells me that their first gig was playing with Dion and the Belmonts. Remember, remember, remember.
Oh,
That,
yeah.
that was the Earls. And they made it to the top of the charts a number of times. And they were one of my favorites. So imagine um, doing podcasts, being on Facebook, and meeting and liking Edward Harder, for instance, for more things than just his music, getting to know him as a person. And that's why it's important for me to get to know my guests. And did you root for baseball or sports as a kid?
Primarily Oakland Raiders back in the day. The
Oh,
John Madden days,
oh yeah.
Jim Otto, Daryl LaMonica, George Blanda.
Boy, I'll tell you what. I can remember the immaculate reception where I was in
Yep.
Macy's at the time with a million TVs on in December watching that that game. The Pittsburgh Oakland rivalry was like the Dodgers and Giants. It was absolutely fierce. And you mentioned quarterbacks. You didn't talk about and I can't even think of his name.
George Blanda.
Yeah, George Blanda, of course, with the miracles
The
in those
19
years.
was it the 1970 season?
Right. Oh, that was an incredible,
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
44-year-old quarterback.
And he was a kicker as well and an inspiration in the clubhouse. Um, he was incredible. And they had LaMonica, who perhaps had the best arm in football. And when I first got out of the Air Force, I lived in Danville for a while, and Big Ben owned a bar in Danville. And I would go in there. He was a Jew boy, and I'm a Jew boy. And we got to be friends, and he could say, "Hey, if you don't pay that bar tab, we're gonna get another Jew boy after your ass." But he had this picture, a mural on the wall of him getting Joe Namath. I was a Jet fan, moved out to California, and him creaming Joe Namath. It's a famous picture of Ben. He was a great guy. God rest his soul. We're losing a lot of us. We people, mortality sucks.
Yeah, it does.
And speaking of Jim Otto, as you were, he recently passed away. A courageous guy. He must have had 30 operations to stay in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And his knee, I understand in his later life, he was not able to walk very well, if at all, because of his commitment to football and the team.
And you probably know, being an attorney and a football fan, there's a tremendous amount of a preponderance of brain injuries that come from playing in those days. They had, they'd say, "Hey, you're fine, get back in there." Now they have all kinds of protocol that you have to go through. The helmets are a little better. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't have my kid playing football for all the money in the world. Just
Yeah, well, the evidence definitely bears it out.
yeah.
Yeah,
Speaking
you know,
of
the other thing back in the day, remember when they outlawed the crackback block?
yes, I do. That was a Raider technique as well, if I'm not mistaken. Well, the 49ers won. Boy, they had the Bay Area in those days. You mentioned rivalries that were competing with each other, football rivals. You had the 49ers and the Raiders.
Yep.
And we're East Bay people now. How did the Raiders, or how did the city of Oakland manage to lose three major teams, to San Francisco, to Las Vegas? Is there an explanation? My thinking was you couldn't have compromise, which is your trip, if you have the city of Oakland and you have the county of Alameda, and you have the rich ownership. You can't come to agreements. Was that part of the problem? I'm sure you followed their demise in Oakland carefully.
Yeah, well, you know, Zig, but there's a lot of things that you don't know. So I don't ever couch those losses as Oakland losing. It's because it sounds like it was their fault that these teams left. So, you know, there's economic consideration. There's a lot of different considerations, and none of us had a seat at that table with those negotiations.
Was there anybody that helped make it better in those negotiations, as opposed to throwing a roadblock up to it and blowing the thing up?
Yeah, that I do not know.
Okay. All right.
You know, that the thing is that, you know, you've got the political considerations because it was the Oakland City Council and the Alameda County Board of Supervisors in there, and they have certain interests as well. They're protecting taxpayers, remember? So it's more complicated, and I don't think any of us knew the behind the scenes part of it. What was said, what the deal was.
Okay, or wasn't in this case.
Yeah, or wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes the best deals are the ones that you don't make. So
That's true. Yes.
okay. Tell me were motivated to go to law school yourself? What, um, who was it that put the bug in your head? Um, because it takes a lot of discipline to go, past the bar and what have you. Who was that one person, perhaps, or was it just a self thing where you decided yourself?
Well, it's a long and twisted road about how I got there. So I've been self-employed for the vast majority of my life. I started at 14 years old mowing lawns for the neighborhoods for $1 a lawn. And over the many years and the number of businesses that I've had, I've come in contact with, we'll just say, regulations. And I finally got tired of being regulated. The last business that I had before I sold it was regulated by Proposition 65, clean water. It was a silk screening business, and basically all the federal and state and local agencies that regulate business. So I got tired of people coming into my office with a badge and a binder, sometimes unannounced, to say you're violating this or we've had this complaint. And so I decided to go to law school, not to be an attorney. I had no desire. In fact, pretty much at that time, I hated government and I hated attorneys. So I decided to go to law school in order to be able to take enough classes and just have enough knowledge to be able to push back. And that was what started the journey. And after my first year, I had had almost all the courses that I needed to be able to go use a law library, but the study of law was fascinating. And so I stayed in law school, not with the idea of becoming an attorney at all, just having a knowledge of how our legal system works. And it was an amazing experience. I think everybody should have to take 6 months of basic law practice, I guess. Constitutional law, the court system, procedure, real property. I learned something in every one. It gave me a huge perspective on life.
What
So it
school
was
did you attend, Jeff?
John F. Kennedy University School of Law it was in Pleasant Hill at the time.
Would you give them an A, B, or C?
Oh, so law school is what you make it as a student. So you may get a slightly better perspective or a slightly better education at a top-notch law school, but JFK fit my needs. I was in a night program because I still had my business during the day. And obviously, it gave me enough information and taught me enough law and how to take that bar exam that I was able to pass it and get my license.
And what was your first gig? Was it independent as an attorney?
So keep in mind, I never wanted to even be a lawyer.
Right.
So yes, I passed the bar exam, got some friends together. When my bar card came in, we opened up a bottle of champagne and I tore it apart. Had no intentions of practicing. And 6 months later, one of my closest, dearest friends gave me a call. She was crying and said her father had passed away and that they needed an attorney to probate the will. And she only trusted me. The problem is that passing the bar is not practicing law. The two are not related in any way. And I told her that I couldn't represent her because I didn't know anything about probate law. So she was upset that I couldn't help her. And so I went to the law library and they said, look, probate is very easy. This looks like a simple situation. They have these things called practice guides, and they're chronological through one of these cases. So you start at chapter 1 and you end at chapter 19. So I told her I would take it, and that was my first case. It was a probate case. I remember having to go get my bar card again because I thought when you went to court, you had to show them a card that you were a lawyer. And that actually wasn't the case. You just walk in and nobody seems to care.
Right.
So that was my first case.
Right. I'm sure they're worried about, is anybody going to find out how I got the job, let alone bug somebody else about it. Surprisingly, there's less control than you were experiencing. There's less control in law, it seems, than you were experiencing from the guys with the red tape. And that's been a big problem. You specialize now in mediation between tenant and landlord.
Yeah. So, Rob, let me interrupt you just for 1 second because I feel like I left this conversation with I hated lawyers and I hated attorneys. And I think I need to finish up that part of the story if you don't mind.
Not at all. Please let us know about what you want to talk about because this way we can get to know you. And that's the whole purpose of having you here for the first time. Next time we'll talk about what needs to be talked about. But getting to know you is really super. Thank you, Jeff.
Well, grateful for the opportunity. So after law school and a couple of years, I was contacted by one of my friends that I made during law school that asked if I could help her out. She was an attorney working in the city attorney's office in another jurisdiction. And when she called me and said she wanted me to come and work for them, I kind of said to her, I hate government and I hate attorneys. And so I'm not sure why I would want to work for you. And it was a short contract gig. And she said, because we're going to pay you a pretty good amount of money for about 3 months worth of work. You just be able to help us out of a jam in one area of the law, and then you can go back and do what you want. So I went down, had the interview, and got the job for the 3 months, and it turned out to be almost a 10-year gig. And so one of the things, yeah, and it was a great opportunity to see the other side of that red tag, that enforcement piece, and gave me an entirely different perspective. And what I will say is a greater appreciation for the work that city employees do and sometimes what they have to deal with. So, we all see it as civilians on one side only. I had the opportunity to see it on the other side. Saw some very committed, dedicated people.
Nice. What is the major contention between the tenants and landlords? Nothing individual, but what would you say is the major source of contention?
So I guess what I would say is now, because the city has fairly strong renter protections, there is far less contention between the two parties. And what used to be my mediation practice before we had any kind of regulation on the amount of rents that one could charge or the reasons why you would terminate a tenancy, there was lots of things. Primarily, it was landlords trying, not all landlords, so I don't want to put everybody into the same box, but it was a number of landlords that wanted to keep up with current market rate rents. And early on, that wasn't a big problem because rents weren't going up that fast. But as time went on, the Bay Area got popular. We were seeing 10, 15% rent increases year over year, and depending on the property, even larger. And so having 1/3 of your income as a tenant go up 10 or 15% every year, and maybe sometimes twice a year, that was displacing a tremendous number of people.
Okay. So you started out representing tenants, I assume.
So actually, I just started out reaching out to people and most of the time it was a tenant that would post on Facebook that they were going through some situation, depending on what it was. It was a rent increase, or they were having trouble getting repairs made. And this was all done on social media, on Facebook. So I would do a private message to the tenant saying, look, I'm a licensed attorney. If there's any way that I can help, because remember back then we did have there were no regulations at all. So I would reach out to the tenant, see if they were interested, reach out to the landlord, and hopefully there were a number of landlords that said, yeah, let's see if we can work something out. So those types of phone call type mediations were how I got started.
Okay. Was there ever a time through the process when you were so frustrated you had a hard time going on? And what made you go on, if there was a time like that? What kept it going?
So I guess the second part of the question is going to get answered first, and that is the commitment that that I make, because if you can help a group of people in conflict out of that, that's very rewarding for me. And so I kind of seek out those types of situations. And as far as something that made me hard to go on, I think the commitment to help the community or to help these people in dispute, especially when there was such a power imbalance, is what motivated me to stay there. As far as personal reflection, one of the things about being a mediator is you kind of have to put your own personality aside. And one of the things that happened when I took my mediation training is I thought it was about how a mediator would have people resolve their dispute. And that was the furthest thing from it. The mediation that I took was on a community model. And in that model, you cannot be a fact finder and you can't use the law. So their philosophy was, as a mediator, you are there to create an environment for the parties to talk directly to each other and to work out their own resolution based on their interests. So the mediator's role is not to influence, but just to manage the power dynamic, I think is a good example. So when you have a tenant and a landlord situation, the landlord with no rent control can pretty much say whatever they want, whatever terms they're going to have. And the idea was to have the tenant be able to be in an environment where they could express the concerns, the impact that was going to be having on them. And in many cases, once the landlords would hear what that impact was, there was some type of resolution or some kind of moderation of whatever was having to get done. Wasn't successful in every case, but what my job was, and this is the skill set that I struggle with every day, even now, 20 plus years into it, is number one, identifying your own implicit bias in any of these situations. And one of those implicit biases could even be, well, the landlord has the superior power and the tenant can't do anything. And that isn't necessarily the case, but a mediator's implicit bias can impact the discussion. The other thing is being able to empathize with those that you don't share their same view with. And that can be very, very challenging. But when you're sitting listening to a landlord speak about their hardship, and how do you relate to that in relation to a tenant's hardship, and trying to be as empathetic as possible to both of those sides. And yes, it can be challenging and it can be exhausting. And I like to think that even today, I still fail at both of those, but I take some gratification in knowing that I probably fail a little less than I did before.
Maybe you've learned some skills along the way to make failure less apt to happen. But
I would like to think so.
Okay. I would take all the credit you possibly can.
Well, the credit goes to the parties. The mediator only facilitates that. It is
It must have
literally the
been
party
much
that's
easier for you to cultivate tenants as opposed to landlords. How was it that, given the power, I remember when they had all that power, given all the power that they had, what what were you able to do to get them to, and I'm going to use the C word, compromise?
Oh my goodness.
It's a lot of people don't
You're really
dig it.
living life on the edge right now. Compromise.
Compromise, scary,
You're
huh?
going against the system, bud.
How do you get landlords to how did you get landlords to compromise, or for lack of a better word, when they had the power? I guess that, just looking at the results, that's your biggest accomplishment. Am I correct?
So I'm going to focus back on the parties again. In that, and I'm going to regress for just a second, because that C word that you use always gets the hair on the back of my neck a little riled up, because people think of going into mediation and that you compromise. In fact, I was at the Hayward Courthouse one day, I do some volunteer, or did some volunteer mediation in the courts. And I had listening to an attorney explain to his client what mediation was. And he said, you go into a room, this guy who's the mediator is going to keep telling you, well, you got to compromise, you have to compromise. He's going to go to the other side and you're going to have to compromise and settle this thing. And then when we both get to a point where we've compromised so much, we just get exhausted and say, yeah, that's fine. And that is the furthest thing from what mediation actually is. So as far as I'm concerned, the way that I describe mediation is people come in, depending on which side they're on, with a certain set of facts, assumptions, and literally their implicit bias. But when you sit down and you talk across the table with the other person and you truly listen to how that activity is impacting them, in in most cases, they're going to say, oh, I did not understand how that was going to impact you. I did not know you were going to have to move to Idaho because I was raising your rate 7%. What might you be able to afford? And so a lot of the mediations were with small landlords. They were not the big corporate landlords. And those were people too. And I think people forget that, because you're a husband and wife, or a single person that has a Victorian or two, that you're part of this big corporate mega culture and that you don't have any feelings. And that is not what my experience was.
Okay. Are you happy in what you do? Would you rather be doing something else? Probably not, or you wouldn't keep doing it. But if you were to do something else, what would it be?
Probably finish up the renovation of my Victorian.
Okay. Or do you do it yourself, or do you have people come in?
So I do it I do a lot of it myself. This was when I bought it, it was one of the worst houses in Alameda. Had all the original 1895 plumbing, electrical, the lath and plaster. The roof had holes in it, and I bought the house so that I could learn residential construction.
Did you?
Unfortunately for the Alameda building department, because I got a lot of lessons from the building inspectors on how it should be done versus how I did it.
Well, did you ever teach them a lesson or two? I bet you did.
No,
Okay. No.
no. No, the building inspector is always right. That part I did learn.
Okay.
That's what you learn. You know, things like that you learn. Things like that I didn't learn from my dad. You know what I always learned from my dad? Measure once, go to the hardware store twice. Those are the kind of things I learned.
Ah.
Never cut away from you, always cut towards you. He said he would say, lift with your back, not your knees, boy.
Yeah.
And I would say, what?
You're putting all that weight on your back. That's the way it should be.
And
that
this is
won't
why
hurt
I
you
grew
later.
up this way. This is why I grew up this
Yeah.
way. But yeah,
No,
no, you
listen, when
learn
you have
things,
when
right?
you have a person in authority, you want to respect that authority at least while it's going on. You know, it's the
Okay.
same thing with my event production business on a Saturday morning when I'm dealing with a health department inspector, a fire inspector, or somebody from security. You're not trying to solve a problem that early in the morning. You're just responding to what that person's requests are.
Oh, you just let something slip there. Event production company. Is that why you got the fancy hat and the bright shirt? What's going on? Talk to us about your event production company.
Is it in Cuba?
Is it in Cuba?
Actually, no. And this shirt is actually not my Hawaiian shirt. I don't know if you can see it, but this is my
Halloween.
my shirt for Halloween.
There you go.
All right.
Oh, I see it. Look at that. It has all the pictures of my exes flying around there. Did you see them? I see my ex right there. That's cute. That's good to see her.
Yeah. Only get to wear, 1 week a year.
Well, and if you can't tell, I'm wearing something of the same kind of thing.
I can see it. Yeah.
This is little pictures of me when I was younger.
Thinner?
What? Yeah, and thinner. And my mom would feed me table scraps. These are me. Yeah, that's that's. Or it's me in about 70 years. However you want to look at it. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff.
So anyway, yes, I am also an event producer. I've been doing it for 40 years.
What kind of events do you produce?
Street fairs.
Cool, because you're
Yeah,
talking
primarily
to a
like
couple
our. I don't do the Park Street Fair, but it's very similar to that.
Cool, because you're talking to a couple entertainers. So just wanted to let you know. We'll make sure to send you all my contact info and my press kit.
Yeah, well, that's not well.
You
so
may want to advertise on Zig In The Zone and join all 4 other people who are doing so. And we are primarily appealing to Alameda people. I post on all the groups that will have me on a regular basis, and I highlight people from Alameda who are, like yourself, interesting. And I want to teach you one of the first lessons in podcasting is self-promotion.
Yeah.
So, where can we get in touch with you for that, for your events?
Give us your shameless plugs and up-and-coming events. Tell us.
So actually, my season is over with, and most of the events I do are not in Alameda. I do the basically 9-county Bay Area. So I have events in Cupertino, Castro Valley, Cherryland, Ashland, and then I just finished up the Pacific Coast Fog Festival. Absolutely awesome event.
So do you represent other entertainers, or are you just one of the organizer of the events?
So I handle the logistics primarily for the event. There's usually someone else that the sponsor, that's usually a chamber of commerce or some kind of a civic group. They will actually be in charge of the entertainment. Maybe before COVID, yes, I was booking entertainment in, but then after COVID started and we had this fairly long break with no venue and no nothing, I sent that back to each of the sponsors so that they could, because they had better connections for the local entertainers. The people that I would be using were kind of on the circuit. They were larger, and I thought it was just best to try and feature local performers.
Now, okay, we had a conversation off air prior to the show, and I'm not going to infringe on those rights. We're not going to talk politics, or we're not going to talk religion.
Thank you.
But we will talk media production and value. And again, we're not going to talk about the candidate himself, but what do you think about this media thing yesterday with the comedian that was at the event that opened up for one of the politicians? It doesn't matter which side of the aisle it was on. This person went in and started doing some very racial stuff. Do you remember hearing about that? What as a producer, do you get like cold sweats and the hair on the back of your neck starts going up and you start going, oh no, did I not vet this person? Have you ever ran into a nightmare like that where you book someone or put
They're in
someone
the
on
wrong
stage?
place at the wrong time. They didn't
Yeah.
know their audience.
And again, I'm not trying to get your opinion on the politics of it, but I'm just saying, as a
No, but
producer, I've
just
put people on stage where I've cringed and I'm like, really? Why didn't I see? Because I'm a writer and stand-up comedian, and most of the stuff I produce is either variety that has to do with music and stand-up comedy. So usually when I vet people, I want to see, you need to send me a clip. You need to send me some of your material. You need to tell me what you're going to perform for the event that I'm producing. And so I kind
exactly.
of know what they're
Yes.
going to do going into it, but I deal with some wild cards because they're comedians. And that's what happened the other day, is that it was a comedian that wanted to express freedom of speech, and it ended
But
up
he
being
was vetted by said character.
right. But again, I'm looking at it from a producer standpoint as like, oh no, what do I do? You almost want to go get at the Apollo, the Sandman, either
The
leave
hook.
them off
The
stage or
hook.
hook and pull them off or whatever it is, or you want to drop the curtain and turn off the lights and turn up the music. Or so, what happens in your world? Have you ever had a situation
Yeah,
like that?
so exactly. And Paul, I'm with you. In any event that I produce, I'm almost anal about I need to know everything that's going on,
Right,
or at least if it's my responsibility.
right,
So in these events, I put the call out and I take care of the artists, for instance, all of the vendors. So they have to go to my website. I've got a fairly extensive application that they have to fill out. They have to submit pictures, not only of their individual work, but of their entire booth. So I can see everything. And then within the literature, it says I have the right to boot you out if you're doing anything other than what I have approved. And so from that standpoint, I know ahead of time going in that if something decides to go south, I can turn around and I can enforce because I have the regulations in place.
right. And you have the backup as far as documentation and saying, hey, you signed this thing.
Right.
You
Yeah.
sent me a
Where
picture of this.
yeah, it's a little more tricky when you have the area that I get involved with all the time. In fact, I kind of call myself the 1 minute mediator at 8 o'clock in the morning on an event site.
Right.
Is when you have vendors that are somehow incompatible with each other. They all fit their own requirements, but for some reason
When you put them
jeweler doesn't
together,
like
the pieces of the puzzle don't fall into place. No, I know
That's right.
exactly
Yeah.
what you mean.
So you have to deal with that. Ones that are a little more challenging, I think, are on the regulatory side because ultimately I'm responsible for every food vendor maintaining their the health department requirements.
Right.
We have a health department inspector come in on Saturday, but after they leave, the safety in that booth kind of falls to me.
Right.
So that's one area that I need to be involved with. And fortunately, I had to deal with a good set of vendors. They all know the rules. I know all the rules.
Well,
Same thing with fire department.
and that's it too. Because if I don't know if y'all can see, but I'm wearing my Comedy Day shirt. I'm on the board of directors of Comedy Day, and every year I deal with sponsors and vendors and
Right.
general like the health department for the food trucks, the fire department for egress and for stuff and logistics, loading in and loading out. Our venue is Golden Gate Park. It's Robin Williams Meadow. So we have to be uber sensitive to everything it's going on with the city. The city works with us very well. We've been doing it for 43 years now. And so and every year it's a challenge, even though you have these things put in place. Do you ever have to deal with performers like we were talking about, where somebody's up there and they're saying something on a microphone and you almost want to give them the hook? Have you had that kind of interaction?
So I have been fortunate, no, that I haven't. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't go and do whatever was. Well, actually, let me take that back. So it's not with a performer, but it was with a food vendor many years ago. And I won't say the name of the event, but it was this was on a Sunday early afternoon. It was a hot day, and I was doing the kind of the cursory inspections on a Sunday afternoon just to make sure that everybody was doing things that were safe. And I was walking along the back of the food booths and saw two onions, the yellow onions
Sure.
sitting in the gutter. And the booth itself was in the gutter facing out to the middle of the street. So I picked up the two onions, dusted them off, and then was going to put them back into this bin. So to get into the booth, I had to push an ice chest kind of out of the way in order to get the onions back. And when I pushed that ice chest back, it sloshed. It was not ice, it was water sloshing back and forth.
Right.
So I happened to open it, and inside were these sealed packages of chicken breasts. The water was kind of a salmon pinky color. I put my hand in the water. It was warm. And I shut it down and said, "Who's in charge of this booth?" And we went jaw to jaw. And he was not going to change. And so I went to the front of the booth, put my hand on the cash box, yelled out the little window in front, "This booth is shut down."
Man, that sounded like something from my grade school, what they'd serve up in that kitchen.
We just did a dead stare.
Oh, yeah.
That's all it was a dead stare. I got on the radio and said, "Hi, I need some help. I'm at blah, blah, blah." And so two of my crew came over, and one of them I said, "You need to go get ice. You need to get ice now. These are going to get thrown away." And, the guy was not happy about it. He was shut down. But the fact is, you're protecting the public, right?
Right. First and foremost, it's about safety.
It's yes. As a fellow event producer, you know that better than anybody else.
That's the number one thing on your thing. It's safety. And,
yeah.
And we've had to do a lot of things over the years. Even in recent years, we've had to do like single shooter scenarios and give diagrams. And here's, again, when you're doing things like comedy events, you don't want to have to think about those things, but you have to think about those things, right? Because
somebody in your organization has to think about them. Yes.
So we get it. Well,
this last year I went and did a lot of training.
It's been fun hanging out with you. So what events do you have coming up? It's the end of your season. What's the beginning?
So it's the end of my season. I don't know if everybody, in late December, I go back out for contracts and bids if anybody is interested in having me produce their event.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Beautiful. Awesome.
Hey, Jeff, thank you for being here. And if you had a good time, I hope you'll come back.
Yes, it was great hanging out with you guys.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we would love to have
happy Halloween.
We never get enough time.
Greatest holiday of the year.
And I cut you off. I was saying we never get enough time with our guests that we enjoy our time with, so we would love to have you back.
Anytime.
Remember.
So give us some last-minute plugs. Where can we catch everything you do, including your website for your events?
So the website is Festival Productions, thedigit2.com. If you have a tenant landlord problem, see me on Facebook, either at Jeff Cambra or Jeff Cambra-Alameda CA.
Which do you prefer?
Both.
Okay.
Either one gets to me.
Beautiful. And thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Very grateful for the opportunity. It was nice chatting with both of you.
Absolutely. Now we get to do one of those things that keeps us on the air. We have to play the spot that keeps us in the spot.
Two spots.
Two spots. So you guys make sure to watch our sponsors. Please patronize, like and subscribe. We got our guest, Jeff Cambra. He's got all his information there. We'll also include it down in the comment section of wherever you can see Zig in the Zone. But let's pop into a little commercial. This is your buddy Dennis at D1 Mobile, and we'll be right back after this, guys. D1 Mobile Auto Service. Call them at 510-978-7064. That's right, Dennis and his crew at D-1MobileAutoService.com. You can get engine assembly, transmission, clutch kits, suspension, diagnostics, water pump. He does it all. There's his phone number, 510-978-7064.
And he will make calls to your home of business.
And don't forget to tell him Zig sent you.
We got one more to show you.
Yeah, we do.
We are happy to have sponsorship, and
remember to support all small businesses, because when you do, you support a dream, guys.
Park Social, located at 1222 Park Street, Alameda. Open 9 to 9 p.m. 7 days a week, with specials every day of the week. Look us up on the web at parksocialalameda.com. Again, that address is 1222 Park Street in Alameda. Phone number is 510-747-9707.
Don't be that the guys over there talk to that. They're right there.
Jada, it is, and I will. And let me recommend something that they gave me to sample.
Okay.
Some Zen gummies.
Ooh.
Oh, to die from.
To die from instead of for.
Right.
I don't know if we want to die from them, but we want to die for them.
Well,
either way, we don't want to die.
We don't want to die. Not yet.
No. And if you are, you're going to do it with a smile on your face with some of those Zen gummies.
Believe me, they hit the spot that day. And you hit the spot every time I get to meet you.
Well, there you go, buddy. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much. We had a good show.
Yes, we did.
And
again, check out Jeff Canberra and all the stuff he does.
Oh, he does great stuff.
Right.
And it was fun talking to someone from Alameda.
Right.
My hometown. We didn't get to talk about that very much, and how he got here. We will when he returns.
Yeah.
And just chalk it up to good production.
And you guys, we still got a set of tickets left for Ghostly Ghastly, a game show at Cobb's on Thursday, this Thursday, October 31st. If you guys are looking for those tickets, please go subscribe to Zig in the Zone on YouTube, on the Comfortably Zone network on YouTube, as well as go like them at Facebook and everywhere else. Podcasts can be seen and heard. So go do that. Send us a little screenshot. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that little bell on YouTube, and we'll get them.
We really got to give your studios, Edge Studios, what you have going.
Yeah, and you guys, where is it? Oh, it's right here. See this?
Yeah.
See this right here? That's, oops. I'm trying to do it. There it is. There's Edge Studios.
What you got going, Paul?
What do I got going? We're always looking for more people to express themselves in a creative, fun, and positive and safe environment here at Edge Studios. So if that's you, even if you're not able to come here to San Francisco, we can produce your show. We produced part of a segment last night in Thailand. Yeah, Thailand.
Right.
So we can produce your show wherever you sit on this planet. As long as you got a good Wi-Fi connection and a dream, we can help you do it. It's Edge Studios. Reach out to us at Edge Studios Online at Gmail, and we'll help you realize your dream, just like Ziggy over here.
Zig, you helped me realize my dream, because I was an audio podcaster for 12 years.
Right.
And we took this a step further, where you get to see who you're talking to. We play play good stuff, good videos along the way, and
We have a fun time.
we have a good rapport, and we like what we do together.
Yes, we do.
And I want to thank you again, Paulie, for keeping it going. And we're out of here.
That's it. For myself and the Zig Man, we out, folks. We'll see you next week here in the zone.
We're Ghost.